Budget Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, March 28th. We will now begin our meeting. Dr. Montoya, also the chair members of the committee is myself, I'm the chair, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Cristina Saavedra, our colleagues, Ms. Peña and Ms. Longoria are also here with us today.
Madam Chair, members of the board and audience that's here, we continue with our budget process, and we again share very specific and general information. One area that we'll share with you this evening will be the TASB compensation plan, as well as some other areas related to transportation. Also, some companies that might be selected in terms of assisting us, we hope, with enhancing district revenues. So with your permission, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Atkinson and for the TASB compensation plan update, or Smiley, I guess. Let me go to you. Yeah. Mr. Garcia, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Dr. Montoya, Madam Chair, and fellow board members. As Dr. Montoya has mentioned, this is a continuation of the process that we've started several months ago. It's for Budget Committee for March. And at this time, what we're going to be doing is, remember at the last presentation, Dr. Dane Atkinson came and gave us a presentation on the TASB compensation plan. We asked him to go back and do some revising for us, take into consideration other points that we wanted to present to you all. And he has done that. He has been working with our HR department. Dr. Atkinson has been really very helpful to the budget process. Both Dr. Atkinson's here. So at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Dane Atkinson to go ahead and approach the podium and give us an update on the TASB compensation plan.
And for the record, there's no relationship, correct?
That is correct. In fact,
it's
I
spelled
think
different, but sometimes they might say, "Oh," but
you can just call me Dane. Actually, that works best. I call her Dr. Atkinson, but call me Dane. I would warm to that nicely. So thanks a lot. You have some material, which is an update. What I want to do, pardon me just a second, is share with you the highlights. Lots of the material you've seen already, you have in fact reviewed. One of the things which is in the market set of material that starts roughly in the last third of the document. There have been a few adjustments to that, but not substantial adjustments, I'd say, overall. And so what I want to do is to share with you the working set of materials right now, which includes a complete redesign of all the pay plans. I'm going to use the executive summary, which I find that trustees that I've worked with, board members that I've worked with, find kind of walking through this as a process a pretty quick way to get on top of the information, and also it might help you ask any questions should you have those. And I have a couple of pages in here I'd like to highlight for you, and then answer any questions as we go along or at the end of the little talk here. First, this is just to kind of underscore, this is a study, and it's great to have been here a month ago with you to underscore this whole notion that this is a study that's in process. It's an ongoing endeavor. Most school districts that have successful compensation plans actually work on the compensation plan pretty intensely, but they also go through and do monitoring and observing of that as they go through the whole of the year. The study-specific process uses some basic research kind of concepts here where we collect a lot of information, organize it in a way that presents some useful information and also design information. We also stand ready and as the School Board Association and me personally as to be available to help any sort of implementation as you move along here. Some key observations, if you will. I'm looking on page 1. There you have about 7,400 total employees, and you spend just under $300 million for your payroll. The 7,400 employees is a head count as of just before December. So you may have some small adjustment to that, and it's not necessarily FTE, which is one of the budgeting items. But when it comes to designing a compensation plan, you're really looking at whole employees. And so that's the approach that I take. 45% of your employees, that's 7,400, are classroom teachers, and about 45% are non-exempt employees. And so that's useful to know. There are two comments, and then I'd like to turn to page 8 in just a second. First, the majority of your employees, actually when we look at the compensation plan, but when I dig down and start looking at benchmark comparisons between employees, the majority of your employees are paid at or slightly below market. That also means about half your employees are going to be paid less than market, and some are going to be sporadically paid a little better than market overall. The key thing here is also that your compensation plans are, as I say, out of sync or out of touch or out of support with your general level of pay that you would want to have. If you'll turn to page 8, which we'll come back to page 1 here in just a second. If you'll turn to page 8, this underscores by job group. We take a look overall, and then we look within job group. Job groups are jobs that are similar in terms of the career pattern, in terms of the certification, in terms of the nature of the work. We look at the plan that supports the pay, which is described generally as a pay range for all your positions that you have, and we make that assessment to benchmark positions in the school market, by and large. There are just 1 or 2 exceptions from that. The teachers, again, where the majority of your employees are, the plan that you have is just below market, about 98%. But as we looked at that more carefully, one of the places that you're lowest to market is in the lower years, which also corresponds exactly with where you employ most of your teachers. And so one of the things to do is if you want to improve potentially your candidate pool, that would be a focus of where you would want to make most of your improvements. Overall, it is slightly below market. It is not substantially below market. You are the biggest school district in the area and one of the bigger school districts in the state. Your average pay, in part because you have a fairly large number of well-seasoned classroom teachers, is slightly above market. So the combination of average teacher pay and pay plan is puts you at market with that group. The group of support professionals, which includes jobs like counselors and diagnosticians, et cetera, is likewise connected to a market. The pay plan here is very near market, as is the average median pay for that set of jobs. Professional administrative employees, which includes everything from assistant principals to directors and coordinators, et cetera. The pay plan here is really pretty weak to market. 6 points below market would be considered low. Something at 98% level or 101% level are considered at market. So the average pay for this group is okay, but the plan really lags, which would mean that you can create this is sort of the perfect kind of storm, as people describe it, where you could end up creating some pay inequities quite unintended. So anytime you see a big gap, that's one of the potentials of a concern. The management support group, which are the exempt employees that are mostly in the central office that work with business and operations overall, are paid, generally speaking, a little below market. And the plan that supports them in the pay group that's there is also below market by some small amount. Instructional support group, that plan is very weak to market, although the pay is fairly close to market. So this is an illustration, again, of a plan that potentially can create some inequities or misunderstandings overall in terms of how it should function. And it does need to be improved, as do all the salary plans. The clerical secretarial group mimics in a very real sense the same as the instructional support. The technical specialized, which is a small group of about 90 employees, which includes security employees, includes computer employees, and some medical specialty non-exempt employees, are paid at market. The trades employees plan overall is low to market, and the pay likewise is low to market. One of the goals then, whenever we move forward into redesigning or resetting the compensation plan, is to make things more consistent and to make them consistent in a way that supports the pay that you want to have. And my understanding is that you want to pay salaries that are competitive and at market. So that's the summary of overall kind of findings. That's a significant piece here, I might underscore. There's some illustrations that are on the executive summary page 1, that I've already highlighted in here. In the professional support group of jobs, which includes the counselors, diagnosticians, and other things, use a combination of base pay and salary and supplements. One of the things that makes it a little complicated, actually, to be more competitive with salaries. That really is a way that I consider you have too many pieces that you're trying to put together to have a salary that's a whole salary. So you have a base pay, then you have a supplement, and the supplement and the base pay may not work best for each employee or the employee that you're trying to hire. So one of the things to do, and a recommendation that we'll get to, is to try to consolidate that into a simple salary statement, a complete salary plan. So a revised compensation package in that area would be an upgrade overall to the salaries in that area. When we look at teachers a little more carefully, again, we notice that your teacher experience on average, the median experience is about 10 years, which is less than the average years in the state, which is an indication that you've had growth, which is true, and that most of the growth is usually with new teachers. So 75% of all your classroom teachers have 18 years of service, 25% have 4 years of service or less. That's actually pretty close to Plano. Last week I was in Plano, which is about the same size. 50% of their classroom teachers are between 5 and 15 years. And so actually you're pretty close to that, which would represent the same kind of growth that they've experienced and the same kind of overall size. So that's, I think, is worth noting. The other thing that is pretty notable over on page 2 that stands out for me is in what I consider the higher skilled area, and the higher skilled area is also recognized by market prices. So the higher the market price usually represents a higher level of responsibility or higher level of skill, both in the trades and in the specialized professional business areas of positions. The district's plan has lags, not tends, but does lag behind what the market prices are for that. So one of the things that you do, therefore, is you bring people in low because that's what your plan calls for, because you're faithful to the plan that you have. The problem is that keeps their wage or their salary low for a long period of time. So one of the things to realize is we want to kind of tilt up that into the pay plan for the trades area as well as in the business and specialized area of jobs. So that's also the way that we make the adjustments. To underscore, one of the things, and so I want to look on page, let's see, 14, if you will, which again which is summarizing with some big numbers, but a key piece of what I looked at is not just to make across-the-board changes in the pay structure, which is one of the normal maintenance things that we suggest school districts do. That is just to increase the size of your pay plans by 2 or 3 percentages and then give a pay increase. We went through the very careful process of looking at making modifications that align the jobs that are in the classifications within each one of these job families in a way that better fits with the market, both controlling the width of the pay range, which is a technical important thing, and also the placement of the midpoint compared to what the market values are. When we went through and did that piece, the summary is here on page 14, which is a long kind of process. So all the employees and all the current plans that you have, a couple of things to note. You currently have about 13% of your employees in your current pay plans, excluding teachers here, over the maximum of the pay ranges. That's 13% or 466. Which is a little scary. But actually, when we go back through and look at revising the compensation plans to align with market, we suddenly find that that's not true. That number gets cut significantly and more than in half. So it comes down to about 5%, which is more in line with what I would have expected to see looking at some other data that we created in looking at the pay plan that you have right now. Your current pay overall to market for these sets of jobs is about 91%. After we make adjustments in the compensation plan in a way to better align each one of the pay grades and job families with the market, that changes from 91% to 97%. So we would say overall the compensation plan got improved by 6%. That doesn't mean everybody got a 6% pay increase, but that means the pay plan went up 6% overall in terms of the way the plan is measured, such that you have now a plan that can support giving better pay increases and also support the pay increases that you grant. Those two things are separate, but those two things work together. So you can see how the overall improvement worked. And summarized with 3 quick statements down at the bottom. This means you've got more equity in the compensation plan. You're better connected to market prices, which means when you give a pay increase of whatever rate it is, those pay amounts that employees receive are better indicator of what the value of their jobs are, be it a custodian job, a bus driver job, or whatever job that is in the system, computer programmer or accountant, whatever. There are also going to be fewer employees that will be considered out of bounds. So that is a very important part of what we did. So back to page 2 in the executive summary. And then we want to talk a little more about the recommendations, if that's okay. We talk about improving the teacher's salary plan. You currently start at $40,350 base salary for classroom teachers, and our analysis from looking at what salaries have been in the region strongly indicate that if you are not above about $43,000 by the fall of 2015, you're going to be behind the market. And if you want to improve your salary plan for classroom teachers, then that gives you a couple of years to get over that kind of a hurdle. It should be better than that, but at least you need to be thinking about doing that, which means it's not a good idea, I think I said this earlier, to sit around and wait until 2015 and suddenly make a $3,000 improvement. That sounds like something the state would do, but you don't want to do that. You want to just make gradual, progressive improvements as you can afford, and it also gives your employees the feeling and the accurate feeling that you're monitoring your compensation plan and you're making reasonable adjustments as you move along. The other part of that is we also suspect that the average pay for classroom teachers are going to go up. So you can't just play with the starting part of your compensation plan and assume you've taken care of everything. You have to give a reasonable pay increase overall and also bring your plan up. And so those two things are crucial, and that's what we modeled with the first pay plan increase that we presented roughly last time, and we've enhanced that this time. The second part of key thing that we've done here is take the administrative and professional group of jobs and subdivide them in 2 groups. We've done that with some other job classifications in the past that have become too unwieldy and do not connect with the market very well and just make the overall management of the compensation plan really difficult. I think this will make a long-term improvement overall for that set of jobs so that you can be better connected for the educator jobs and better connected for the business and operations jobs, and be fair with the employees in that group and be fair with how the plan is designed. So the upgrade that I've already talked about and outlined on page 14 is exactly the way we see this. Overall, about a 6% improvement. The plans you have start for classroom teachers and everything start on about page 15. Well, not teachers, but the classification for the administrative and business jobs start on page 15 with the associated pay ranges on the following page. Actually, I want to just make a quick comment on page 16. Even though you see daily rate, monthly salary, or 12-month salary, we actually set up the compensation plan for exempt positions based on salary and then come back and reestablish what the daily rates of pay are for these positions. And so on page 16, and you'll see how that plays out on page 17, where employees are plotted in the new pay ranges. You'll see a few employees fall below the minimums of the pay range. That we put one illustration in here, but we could have put page after page after page that showed roughly the same kind of pattern. But there's no reason to do that. Page 18, there's one correction I need to make. We picked up a wrong page here. Pay grade 7, and maybe you've already received this as a page update, but pay grade 7 is going to be, there's no current positions in there, and we mislabeled some jobs. The jobs that are considered are labeled as executive director for elementary, middle school, and high school should be area superintendent for elementary school, middle school, and high school. They all should be in pay grade 8, not pay grade 7. So we picked up a wrong page, and that's the way it should read here. That's the only correction in the document. So, upgraded the pay structures. We suggest also that you move the pay supplements for positions for jobs like counselors, diagnosticians, and everything into whole salaries. That's a recommendation. Also, there was a request to consider and look at supplements for master level licenses for some technical positions. We would not suggest that you use a supplement, but rather use an adjustment in pay as a technique, because the supplement is a little more clumsy to manage overall. It leads to it's just an administrative cost that you can avoid. We also suggest that you probably ought to put, our suggestion is that you put a limit on the number of those that you would want, because it really should be applicable to the kind of work and support that you need in those in those licensed areas. And it should be licensed in areas that are recognized commonly in the trades area. Electrician, plumber, HVAC, and a few others come to mind. We also suggest overall that you provide a budget. I've used $500,000 in the plan for this year, and that should be reduced over a couple of year period of time down to a very small amount, like $100,000 or so. But that should be in the budget so that you can consider an ongoing way to make small improvements to employees' pay as a category. So what we do is we figure out, or you figure out, or collectively we figure out where you need to make some adjustments by criteria and make small adjustments in a gradual way instead of sort of picking and choosing individuals. We do this by criteria and some other basis. And I've estimated there's any number of ways to do this, but every time I've made some estimations or put some criteria to it, it bounces back at $500,000. And so I don't want to suggest exactly how to do it right now, although I have 5 good ideas. But I do know that every time it bounces back to about that amount of money. And that would be across the whole spectrum of jobs, not just one job family. We did give you an increase, and I will look at the cost of this since we are talking budgets. On page 31 is a summary of the first model general pay increase that we gave you at about 2.25%. Since I met with you about a month ago, I've talked to several boards. All of them still are looking at increases that fall a little above 2% to a little above 3% these days. Whenever I first started the conversation, they were about 2% and maybe up toward 3%. But now I'm getting a few that are bouncing above 3%. And some of them have surprised me, actually. So, not in terms of the size, but just the districts that have done it. Because just like yourselves, a lot of districts did pass on a pay increase last year in order to improve the revenue standing and in light of why the state is supporting schools these days. And so we want to make sure that you're in a better position. You are now in a better position to participate and give employees a pay increase, and to give employees a pay increase based on the fact that there is an increase in the cost of living, the price of jobs have gone up. There is a whole list of reasons employees have stayed with you. They have given you service for more than 18 months. All those are solid reasons to provide a pay increase that meets your budgetary constraints. On page 31, then, we modeled a 2.25% across the all set of jobs here, and it cost about $7.4 million, which came out to be a 2.6% increase in the budget, payroll budget. And that delivered $1,115 for classroom teachers with a new starting salary, a little over $41,000. There was also, along with the general pay increase, there was also equities to move employees into the pay ranges, which is noted down here. You also, at that meeting, said would ask for stronger improvement in the administration, along with the administration and yourselves, requested another model be run, which is on page 32, which is more robust and certainly in line with what I see in terms of other school districts' requests at this point in time. So some combination of page 31 and 32 seems quite reasonable, or page 31 or page 32 standalone. Or even we can make page 32.5 if you want to, but that's probably a little overkill. Let's don't do that. I'm sorry I said that. You'll see in this instance a $1,600 pay increase for classroom teachers at 3.25%, which is about the same size increase that Conroe provided their classroom teachers, a district of comparable size. And that's going to move your starting rate, or allow you to move your starting rate of pay for classroom teachers up to $41,460, a much more competitive starting salary, and certainly much closer to that $43,000 or $44,000 mark that you want to be in a couple of years. You'll also see that general pay increase for non-exempt employees of 4.25% based on the new target rate of pay for all the positions is modeled in here as well. So the general pay increase went up from 6.2% to 9.2%, or about $3 million more. Now, the interesting thing, which I want to make sure that you know, is that if we use the same pay structure, the pay structure that I created would allow you to give stronger pay increases. So because you did execute a stronger pay increase in this model, what happens is it reduces the amount of money required to move people into the pay range. So you'll notice that overall, even though it's a 3% or $3 million increase for general pay increase, the overall increase is a couple of $100,000 less than that, because the size of the general pay increase absorbs some of that. So that's why those numbers are play out the way they are. There are still some employees who are above the top of the pay range, and we have not determined or calculated an increase for what it would mean for those employees. The number is a lot smaller than it was before. There still are some employees that are currently out of bounds. We don't know if they'll still be your employees in the fall, but they certainly are up there. That's a 3.6% increase in the total payroll budget. Again, that's at the top end, but certainly in line with what other school districts are considering at this point in time. So we've gone through what we did as a study process. We've looked at the key observations, which shows that you pay a lot of employees at market, but your compensation plans are really weak to market. There are some practices that would improve overall the efficiencies and effectiveness of your compensation plan. And we've restructured your compensation plan to align to the market and to accommodate better the nature of the jobs that you have in each one of those plans. With that, we've been able to align specific jobs within the current pay structure you have without moving jobs from one classification to another. We did have several requests to move jobs, but actually the best thing to do was to realign the pay structure so the jobs in that whole group better match with the market, and that's what we were able to do. And so that's where we are in the process at this point. We have ready to move forward with some other ideas or help you support this position. And I probably left something out. Pardon?
Ms. Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya. Bus drivers, transportation.
Yes. Well, actually, one of the it's not necessarily an indirect allusion, but when it comes to bus drivers was a job we considered looking at revising in terms of placement. But it actually, because what really needed to happen was the pay structure needed to be changed. And so when you really go, or not necessarily you, but trust what I did, I went through and like the starting rate and the target rate of pay for that job changed $1 an hour in contrast, which is big, in contrast to adjustments for some other jobs that are more closely aligned to market. Your jobs like custodian food service workers, those targets are pretty close to market, so they did not get adjusted at that same pace. But a job like bus driver, which was quite out of sync with market, is now in line. So that if you turn around and give a general pay increase now, bus drivers, et cetera, who are in that same classification would get a pay increase that's adequate for the position for this year. You've also, overall, your bus drivers have better than average work hours that they work compared to other school districts in the area. They're in the top part of work hours. So the combination of work hours and rate means that there's an offset there. Even if you were to change it, you still are really strong. When I looked actually just in Cameron County, your starting wage is is, like I said, about $1 an hour higher and puts you within striking range of all the other districts in the immediate driving area. The actual weighted average for bus drivers in the whole mix that we have is actually below what you pay. I didn't realize that. We use median salary as a way to target the pay plan, which is what we do across the whole spectrum. But if we're looking at placing individuals or making individual job placement assessment, then that's the statistic that we use. And so that's the first time I looked at it a couple days ago. I noticed that because it's a big incumbent group, not just because they have smartly painted vehicles. But overall, the plan has improved. They have benefits that are equal to or better than what other bus driver folks have. The food service workers and custodians likewise have slightly stronger work hours and settings than other school districts of the area as well. What we did in this is to make the improvement in the pay structure so that the pay increase that you grant will have a strong effect on improving the wage and matching better with the market and better consistency inside the group of jobs that the bus driver position is in. And so I'm comfortable. Whenever we looked at it, I knew that that's a large incumbency. You have 250 250 number bus drivers, which is about half the number that's in Cameron County. Pardon?
More.
Oh, 255 or 60. That's just bus drivers. So what that means is you account for most of the bus drivers in Cameron County. And so you're sort of the flagship, and you're this plan that we've put, the adjustments to the plan that we have really put you in the middle of that mix and make it stronger than much stronger than it was before. So I'm comfortable for starting wage and for ongoing control. What this also means is you got to monitor it. So once we get things set up, we need to stay on top of it and make sure that the plan that you have devised here and the increase that you grant works, and then we check to see if that in fact happened again. The pay increase is going to be substantial if you use the 4.25% adjustment in pay. It's good, sound, very sound, excellent.
I have a question. Go ahead, Dr. Savada.
On a lot of these that you have the proposed incomes, there's a medium, a midpoint, and a maximum.
Yes.
What are the other districts? Do they have that as
Same
well?
thing.
And it's pretty standard.
As a concept, it's standard. The rates are not necessarily standard, but
Right.
as a concept.
My question, since we reviewed this and now that we're going into the positions and the adjustments, I know that in the past, administration has done, or superintendents have done, reorganized their charts, but are you thinking of that, Dr. Montoya? Again, but I don't want for any of the reorganization to affect our campuses at all. So have you thought of that? Because I know that we've still seen a lot of the administration still, we feel that we can still work on certain areas, or at least I know I do, but as long as it does not affect our campuses at all.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, we want to stabilize the campuses as much as possible because I think that's the key to ensuring good assessment scores and academic achievement. But you are correct that at the central level, as we go into the summer and the fall, we will be revisiting some areas in general to see how we can either reorganize or do things better. We have collapsed a lot of positions, and so we've asked certain people to pick up extra assignments. So you will be seeing more of that come here in the very near future.
And the reason why, it's because we're really trying to make sure that we can really, kind of look into other areas that have, been staying behind throughout and some of these, and I want for the record, some of these concerns have been lingering through the years. And I think that as a board, we're trying to just see how we can guide ourselves with, as administration will too, so it could help us all and see, like you say, you got to pick certain, criterias or reasons why you're going to make that adjustment in that area or for those positions. So, because right now that I heard about transportation, I mean, we've been told that we're one of the lowest paying, we're the ones that pay them the lowest throughout the valley and throughout the state. So we just want to make sure that we can, sustain ourselves financially in our salaries, and that we can continue to keep our classrooms with the teachers and the staff that is required in order for us to be able to, give the services to our students. So.
Madam Chairman, I would say that
Yes.
that's in the design of the pay structure. That's what you just said is exactly what I think did here. We made improvements where the pay structures were the weakest. We set up structures. That's one of the reasons to divide the administrative group the way we did. It allows you to make some adjustments and improvements in your organizational structure at what I consider sort of the no-cost adjustment approach. Without sometimes you have a pay plan that sort of costs you money to maintain. What we try to do in this process is set up a pay structure that keeps that as neutral as possible in the whole process. And so at the same time, where you have weak points, to make improvements in that area. And bus drivers are a good illustration, I think.
Yeah, we have to focus
and
on.
I have a question, because this is for the 2012, 2013. And what I'm seeing is there going to be increases from the 2011, 2012. And how do I put this without stepping on toes? And if I do, I apologize. And I can already see the frowns, so I apologize in advance. It's real hard for me to sit here, and I do agree people are worth their weight in gold. But it's real hard for me to sit here and see people who are making six-figure salaries in Brownsville. It's really good. And asking us to improve it by, let's say, $10,000 more a year, $20,000 more a year. With a good conscience, I cannot come in, and I'm saying this up front because we have excellent people. That's why we are who we are. With the economy the way it is, with the budget crunches we're getting, and we don't know what's happening next year, for us to say, let's increase some of these $10,000 more a year, and we are going, and I know that our bus drivers are doing good, we pay them well, but it's really hard to swallow a pill that you're telling them, well, we're going to cut them back down to 32 hours, but we're going to increase these other few people $10,000, $20,000 more a year. And so I want to say this now, because if I look at it, and I'm saying it from a layperson's point of view, it's not to insult anyone in any way or manner for their job, because we're all worth our weight in gold. That I will agree. It's just that I find it very difficult because we don't know what's going to come up ahead whenever, what happens next year with the money that we get from the state and the grants. And we're very blessed to continue to get grants. How much of this that we will increase in some of these positions that go into a pay grade 8, how much of this money is actually coming from our budget and from grants? Can someone give me that answer?
Our staff,
Dr. Atkinson, if you'd like to, you had more specific information on.
Well,
please.
thank you, Dr. Montoya, Mrs. Garcia, members of the board. First, I've been looking through my papers. I don't see anybody that's getting a $10,000 or $20,000 raise. So, can you please make reference to where that is?
I noticed how the pay grade 8, we didn't have that before. Now we do. So
You've had pay grade 8 in the district,
but how much
for
is?
several years, Mrs.
But
Peña.
what's the difference with the new budget? How much is it going to here?
Okay,
Go ahead.
well,
He's raising his hand. Go ahead.
Yeah,
he
well,
seems to have the answer.
Well, at first, I just want to make sure, because you said that someone was getting.
Well, if you move them up, if you're going from
20,000.
if you're going down from a 5, well, let me put it this way. If you look at the paper, the one on page 16.
What page are you looking at? So
On
we
page
can all be
16.
clear.
Look at page 16. Just
Yes,
for,
ma'am.
if you have someone at the maximum at $96,000, and in a new plan we're going to move them to a pay grade 6, unless I'm reading it wrong. So this is why I'm asking. Then we go from a pay grade 5, $96,000, and you're moving them up to a pay. If you're looking at moving them up to a pay grade 6 at $108,000, that's $10,000 too.
Who's moving?
I don't know where.
Go ahead.
Well, and I want to address this,
Yeah.
Dr. Dang.
Okay, I was told that we were going to move some of the position, maybe this is why I'm asking,
Who
from a
told you,
pay
Mrs.
grade
Fenner?
5 to a 6. That we have some administrators in pay grade 5 that are now going to be pay grade 6.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Who would have told you that? What do you? I'm lost. Can you-
I will talk to
It's,
Dr.
you know what, Ms. Peña, Mr. Long,
Yeah, maybe I
please
was
make sure
misinformed.
that before you put anything on the newspaper, that you clarify things,
Yes,
because
please,
sometimes
please.
some of us don't comprehend or understand correctly what's on black and white.
Sometimes
and
we're
we need
getting
clarification.
misinformation.
We
It's not
get, we need to get, let me
misinformation.
finish, Ms. Peña, please.
Information.
Thank you, ma'am. So please make sure that this is not out to the public, because I don't want the public to get alarmed when some of us don't understand or need clarification. So please make sure, because I see you out there, Mr. Long, and we're transparent. We want to make sure that the public gets the information. Now, as per Ms. Peña, I ask you, Ms. Peña, that you please meet with administration and that you do not come across as if something is being done without us knowing.
I did
Misleading.
miss Presas, and I will meet
Meet with
let,
her,
let me
please, Dr.
finish, please.
Montoya.
I will meet with them, and then the information that I received, I will ask them again, because if I was misinformed, like I said, I apologize, but I will speak to you in the information that I was given on the particular positions that was going to be moved up. And I did speak to Dr. Montoya. Maybe there was a miscommunication there. That I can tell you. Not a misunderstanding, but a miscommunication. If you will please say what you were going to say. Did you forget?
No, I didn't forget.
Yeah. Miss,
I'd like to
Montoya,
hear-
could you
excuse
please
me, I'd
direct
like to
your
hear
staff-
what he has to
Ms.
say.
Peña, Dr.
Yeah,
Montoya,
Dr.
could you-
Atkinson,
I'm the chair,
I
please
think-
follow my rules. Please, Dr. Montoya.
I think Dr. Atkinson, you were trying to finish something.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, Dr. Dane, with all due respect, is our consultant, but he's not to address administrative decisions. And obviously, the question was, that there was obviously maybe a miscommunication, as it's being characterized at this point, that someone was getting 10 to 20,000 more, which in no way have we seen that come from the district. So I'm not, I can't put, and in all due respect, I cannot let Dr. Dane here be placed on the spot to address something that he should not have to be placed in that position to respond to. So that's an
Just research that has been done.
Yes.
In the state, and you're making comparison, not
Right.
that it's going to happen.
I don't see with Dr. Montoya, members of the board, where there is any recommendation by TASB or has been
I don't see
for
it.
anybody to see a 10,000 plus
Okay,
raise.
if I may
or
get this
adjustment.
clarification, and I guess what I'm looking at is not what I'm seeing. On page 16, and
Yes, ma'am.
pay grade 5 at the maximum, what amount is that pay?
Okay, Mrs. Pena, let me explain it this way.
96,000 is what it has. And I'm just asking,
Right,
if we were,
there's-
let
yes.
me
Let
finish
her
my,
explain.
Sure, go ahead.
or
well, let me
finish
finish my
your
Okay.
full question.
Sure, go ahead.
Please,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
way I'll get the answer. on the
Not a
question.
problem, not a problem.
Let's say it's a pay grade 5, and a person, an individual sitting at pay grade 5 at the maximum point, 96,360. And let's say we're moving them up to a pay grade 6, or someone is suggesting for some positions to be moved up to pay grade 6. And at pay grade 6, what I read here, maximum point is 108,887.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is not happening.
Let me. You're asked two questions really in one. So let me see
Okay,
if I can
okay,
address
sure.
them.
Okay.
And you stop me if I'm not
Yes,
addressing
please,
it
go ahead.
correctly. If you look at this black and white simply, then obviously you would be looking at a possible increase. But you have, and if I'm trying to guess what position you were thinking about, you're talking about someone that was already past that 96,000. So going into that pay grade 6, there'd be a very minimal increase. Nothing
In other
close
words,
to
the
10,000.
only thing we're changing, you're telling me, are the grades to match the money that's already been paid out.
That's what Dr. Dane had originally started saying, that there are people that are out of the range, and so some would
So you
definitely
just
have
want to
to.
move them to the proper grade because they're making past the pay grade that's listed. Is that what-
There's several reasons, but that's the biggest reason why we would be doing that. And of course, if
and there wouldn't be any increase at all.
Well, not necessarily. It all depends. There's several reasons why people would be moving pay grades. First, for adjustments. Others, to make sure that they're within the proper range. But when we start seeing that there are positions, people in certain positions, and let's say for argument's sake, they're in 3s, and there's 4s available. Well, obviously there would be an increase if they go into a 4. But for you to arbitrarily say there's a $10,000-$20,000 raise, there's no way. I don't see how that's possible at all.
Because I was looking at that,
Yes,
but now
ma'am.
I
If you
thank
see
you for
it,
the
yes.
explanation.
Yes, that's
so
what I
then
was
there's a
thinking.
possibility of some increase.
Yes, but
But
not
not a major increase.
No, not-
But there-
not-
and that's what my concern is.
not 5 zeros.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what my concern is. Are we in a position to make any type of increase for anyone because we're tightening our belts?
Well,
Go ahead, Miss. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr.
I'm sorry, Dr. Montoya, Mrs. Garcia, members of the board. One of the things that the board has charged us with is to see what we can do, which is why we've been utilizing Dr. Dane's services here, because he's had the big picture perspective of where we can be as a district in regards to possible adjustments for market purposes as well as for the pay grade.
Right.
Okay, so what you all decide as a board to do, whether you're going to do that 1,600 or that 3 or that 2 1/4 or the 4 1/4, that's for the
For
board
us
to decide.
to
We're
decide.
basically simply presenting the information. You all say yes, go do it. Then we have to look at where we can tighten and where we can streamline in order to make that happen. There's no pot of gold anywhere that we can
no.
take. You know,
And
we cut a lot of money last year. Dr.
Right.
Montoya, pulled a lot of hair out last year trying to make sure he could balance. Mr. Garcia and his team, this is our first balanced budget in years. So we don't take that lightly. We might have made it look easy, but it wasn't easy. It was very difficult, very painful. And for Dr. Montoya at this point to be able to bring you something that looks like we can possibly do a raise that you haven't done in 3 years, with all due respect, we're trying to be as equitable as possible. And by no means do I see a recommendation on the table for anyone to get 10 plus thousand.
And that's what
That's
the question that was posed. So this is why I bring it up, to clear it up. And it's not just step on toes, but to clarify. It's a lot easier to say it here as a group and for people to get the message out instead of asking different people. And by the time the messenger gets to the last person, it's gotten huge. And my only thing is, and I concur with Mrs. Presas, that whatever we do, I want to make sure our students and our teachers at the campus level are not shortchanged. Yeah, I know we have to tighten our budget, but let's not tighten it where we're squeezing what our goal is to support these kids, and we don't want to tighten with them. And I know it's hard, but I know we, really work at it. We can do it without being affecting them in a negative way. That's my concern.
Okay.
Mr. Garcia, may I just follow up
go
with just,
ahead.
and I
Yes,
promise I'll
Dr.
be 60 seconds or less, but I think it warrants that Dr. Montoya at the last 3 budget meetings has stated that the campuses will not be impacted. In fact, Mrs. Longoria was actually at the last policy meeting where we've put back some special ed positions to help assist the campuses. So we're taking the lead of our superintendent and definitely of the board. So again, and I guess I don't want to be touchy about it, but I guess both my feet have been slammed on in the last couple of meetings with statements about us not being conscious about what's impacting the campuses. And if there's anybody here, Dr. Montoya would be the first one to say, we're not doing that to the campuses. We're going to safeguard the campuses. Obviously, we're going to take his lead and do what he's asking us to do.
I appreciate that very much,
thank you.
Dr. Atkinson.
And once again, I apologize for, on behalf of the board. Sometimes I know how it works. I know that in the past we've had employees that reach the max of their pay grade level, and they've been sitting there for 4 or 5 years, and they don't move because it's already been maxed. So I don't think it's fair. So I personally understand the next level or the adjustment. And it is, please, everybody understand. I know there's people out there from manual trades to secretaries to administrators to, and they're stuck on that step on level 5. And they cannot get a raise because that's it. That's your max. So you go another year without a raise because you haven't been moved up or it hasn't been modified. Where okay, you go to the next. I mean, it's not anybody's fault that you've been in the district and dedicated your time and you maxed out. We have to consider they're going to have to pay more for gas, pay more for their groceries, and for us to do that in justice. So there's a reason, there's a purpose, but let's have the knowledge behind it because I understand it. Because I come from the system from within, and so did Ms. Longoria, and so does Dr. Saavedra, because she was a former employee for the district as well. So she understands that. So now that we made clarification, we move along to the next item. Anything else, Dr. Atkinson and Dr. Atkinson?
No, I just wanted to,
Are you kidding? I'm sorry.
yeah.
Thank you,
You
sir.
could just call me the elder if you'd like.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your input.
Very knowledgeable.
Very intensive.
The bottom line, members of the board, is that we want the whole board to review this information and to give us the approval that we need to do. And again, if you read and you've heard already that there is the possibility of some raises that are realistic for us to implement. But anyway, moving along to the next item, this is the presentation of the various financial advisor groups. I believe, Ms. Pena, you have the process set up here to do that. If you'll please come up and share that.
Good evening, Madam Chair Garcia, Superintendent Montoya, and members of the board. The Purchasing Department put out to market a request for proposals for financial advisory services. RFQ 12-103 was received and opened on January 31st of 2012. The district received 6 respondents to this proposal. Tonight we have phase 1 of the ranking process, which is a presentation by 4 of the 6 respondents. The firm of Public Financial Management, Inc. was unable to be here tonight. However, they did provide their presentation. Coastal Securities is a no-show. Each has drawn for presentation places, and each has been allotted a time of 20 minutes, 10 for presentation and 10 for question and answer. Those that are not presenting will remain in my office until their presentation turn. Also, please be reminded that any questions asked must be related to their presentation, and discussion and/or questions regarding their fees are not allowed at this time. With this being said, the first presenter for the evening is First Southwest.
I've got some presentations.
Okay, we're going to go with a timing. Am I correct? So we'll go, they're aware of the time, correct?
The timekeeper.
It's Madam
20 minutes, is it to present or?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go
The
ahead.
instructions were total 20, 10 to present, 10 for Q&A.
Okay, 10.
Okay,
10, you stop them, and then the Q&A. 10.
10 and 10. So when you're ready, gentlemen, go ahead and introduce yourselves and your company and start with your presentation, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We have some presentations that we'd like for the board to have so that we can run through those as quickly as we can.
You can start talking because the
Yeah,
clock's running.
'cause the
Talk like
clock's
that
running.
because your
Very good.
clock is
Thank you.
going.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Raul Villaseñor, and I'm with First Southwest Company. And with me this evening is Chris Vela, also from First Southwest Company. Chris runs our office in McAllen. I'm actually out of the San Antonio office. We wanted to very quickly go through a presentation with you folks this evening. However, I'm not going to go through all the slides in the presentation because I don't want to focus a lot of the time on First Southwest Company. I want to focus most of the time on Brownsville ISD. So if you would turn to page 2. And what we want to do here is basically lay out for the board the financial advisory team that will be assigned for the engagement if we're to be considered and then successfully appointed as financial advisor to the school district. As you can see, the team is very varied. We bring a lot of those technical skills that are necessary to provide good financial advisory work, and the entire team will be available to the school district on day 1. On page 3, we wanted to just quickly present to you some statistics, and these represent the rankings for First Southwest Company, both nationally and Texas, in terms of the financial advisory work that we do across the state and across the U.S. Behind tab B, we wanted to also show you our rankings with respect to education financing, both nationally and in Texas. And as you can see, with regard to both of those pages, First Southwest Company is ranked number 1 in both general financial advisory work and specific to education financial advisory work. On page 6, we wanted to focus a little bit on our Texas experience. And I think what we want you to take away from this page is basically that Chris and I, since 1997, when the IFA program was created, we've been doing IFA deals all up and down the valley and through Central and South Texas since that time. And then in 1999, when the EDA program was created, we started to do EDA-backed deals, again, all across the valley in Central and South Texas. Each time we wanted to ensure the clients that we were optimizing on the state aid that they could receive from both programs, because each program is obviously contingent on a local levy, a local tax levy. And so we've worked with the school districts all across South Texas to accomplish that task. On page 7, we wanted to give you a small representation of some of the clients that we currently represent, including 3 clients in the Valley. And we wanted to give you a representation of both large, medium, and a small school district. We represent Harlingen CISD, Mission CISD, and Santa Rosa CISD. And then on the bottom, we represent a number of large school districts across Central and South Texas. Additionally, I wanted to point out to the board that San Antonio ISD, which is a recent appointment of ours, we were basically hired at San Antonio ISD to basically come in and fix problems that had been created by the prior financial advisor. Behind tab C, then, is where we want to talk about Brownsville ISD. We wanted to give the board just a quick representation on page 9 of the outstanding debt of the school district. As you can see from page 9, the board has a little under $180 million in outstanding debt. The pie chart represents the various types of debt that are outstanding and bonds that can be refinanced for possible interest rate savings. The other thing I'd like to point out is you should be commended and very proud of the fact that the school district has great underlying ratings, both by Moody's and Fitch rating agencies, AA2 and a AA. On the next page, we wanted to give you a graphical representation of the school district's outstanding debt. On page 10 is basically the annual payments of the school district through the final maturity in 2029. On page 11, we wanted to give the board a tax rate analysis that we had our analysts complete. And it's very obvious to us, if you look all the way over to the right-hand side of the page, that the INS tax rate is not set at the level that is necessary to support the debt that's outstanding. We're assuming from that the board is relying on an excess tax collection program to accomplish that. But at some point, the board will have to deal with raising that tax rate by approximately 4 cents. On page 12, just a quick representation there of the QSCB outstanding bonds that have been issued through the Public Facilities Corporation. Chris and I were fortunate back in 1998 when IFA was very first created. We did the first multiple project IFA transaction through a lease revenue bond transaction similar to this transactions here that have been done through the Public Facilities Corporation for Edinburgh CISD. On page 13, again, is the debt representation based on the annual payments that we wanted to show that graphical representation to you folks. On page 14, what we looked at is based on the information that we had read in the newspaper. The school board has a problem to fix with respect to your qualified school construction bonds. We believe that we have a remedy for that. It's not a complete remedy, but a transaction that we believe can begin to diminish the amount of reduced state aid that the school board will be receiving. It was obvious to us that there were some miscalculations that had been done based on the state aid being rendered for the federal subsidy, which we all looked at very, very closely before we started doing those federal subsidized transactions, and knew that the Texas Education Agency was not going to provide you with a subsidy when you were already receiving a federal subsidy from the federal government. We believe that very quickly we would be able to put in the bank a little over $3.4 million to assist the school board in closing that financing gap that we understand you have from what we've read in the newspaper. And finally, on page 15, we wanted to leave with you the fact that Chris and I have been doing this since 1982. We have a wealth of knowledge. We have a lot of experience in dealing with school districts, cities, counties, municipalities across Central and South Texas. And for most of that period of time, since 1982, we've been dealing with school districts such as yours. The firm has been around over 60 years, and we have a breadth of experience that we can also rely on with the rest of our financial advisory team. We also offer the school district a very experienced team, not only Chris and I, but also the other people that were mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And we have extensive experience, as you would expect and need, with respect to school districts across South Texas, particularly up and down the valley. And most important, I think, I'm a former school trustee at Edgewood ISD in San Antonio, so I've been on both sides of the table and have a very clear understanding of the need, first of all, for projects in schools and demolitions and renovations, but also understand the business side of that and how to assist the school district in financing those various projects. Obviously, financial advisors expect that they will have a long relationship with their clients. That's what we would like to have with you folks if we should be selected as your financial advisor. The other thing we want to leave with you is that we have a commitment as a firm to work with small minority and women-owned business enterprises. I actually started with one in this business back in 1983, and both small minority and business enterprises that you're interviewing tonight, we've worked with in the past in a co-financial advisory relationship. And one in particular, Cabrera Capital Markets, we were assigned the financial advisory engagement at San Antonio ISD. Finally, we're familiar with Brownsville ISD. I did some work for the school district in the past. I've also represented the Brownsville Public Utilities Board, so we're very familiar with the city of Brownsville and Brownsville proper. Chris, did I leave anything out?
No. I think that the only thing we also would like to leave with you is that as the resources at the state level become scarcer, it's very important that we optimize on all of the available resources that the district can optimize on. And one of the things that we have been working on this year specifically is with the actual calculations in representing some of the school districts that we do, is ascertaining the levels of financing and state aid that have been secured for this fiscal year.
Your presentation time is over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Ms. Longoria, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
As financial advisors to the district, what would be your duty in looking out for the best interest of the district while knowing that the state would be recommending budget cuts anywhere from 15 to 30% for the next 2 years?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Longoria. As you know, whenever the board enters into a financial advisory relationship, that is a relationship that is very, very important because there's got to be a trust that's established between the board and your financial advisor. As you know, we primarily deal with the interest and sinking fund side of the budget. However, we do have access to consultants that would be available in the event that you want us to look at any financial situation on the maintenance and operations side. We understand that the state for the next couple of biennia will be reducing the M&O side of the budget. What we've seen happen in the past is that's going to limit the amount of money that becomes available on the interest and sinking fund side, just simply because of the reduced state subsidies. Chris and I did a lot of school district work before there were any before there were any state subsidies at all. Before there was IFA and before there was EDA, and certainly before you had a federal program. And you talk about a tough situation in financing facilities. That was it, because there was no state subsidy, so 100% of the money that was borrowed had to be repaid by the local taxpayer.
She has another question, then I have a couple of more. So.
Okay.
Okay, one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
knowing that the district is facing a low fund balance and not in good financial status, and facing, more budget cuts, would you propose the district to vote for a sale of bonds anywhere from 40 to 45 million, placing the district with a debt payment of $3.5 million for the next 15, 20 years?
One of the things that we noticed as we reviewed your audits is that we noticed that the INS fund balance has been shrinking over the last few years. At some point, you're going to put that AA rating in jeopardy because the rating agencies want to know.
We already have it.
I'm sorry?
We already have it,
Okay.
sir.
The rating agencies are going to want to know that the board has established financial policies, debt management policies that basically direct the staff to build up those funds. When those funds are built up, you will either get your what happens is that the rating agencies will not react to one instance of a situation in any particular year. What they look at is for trends. And if the trend over some period of time is that those fund balances are going down, the first thing they'll do is they'll put you on what's called a negative watch, a credit negative watch. That's where the process begins. And it's upon receiving that negative watch that you want to immediately put in place a plan to remedy that and turn that around.
Okay,
Thank you, sir. Now I'm going to go with the couple of how much time do we have left? Okay. Let me get to mine, please. Let me correct you. We're already in a financial, the rating, I think we're already like at risk. So we're like, anyway. Are you a conservative? Would you consider that your firm is a conservative or risk takers for anybody that hires you?
We believe that our fiduciary responsibility for a school district is not to be risk takers. That's not what you compensate a financial advisor for. We simply act on your behalf. That's why you retain a financial advisor, so that they implement the board's policies. Because I certainly, I'm from San Antonio, Chris is from McAllen. We're not particular to the politics of the local area. But no, I don't think anybody would consider me very, very liberal on risk taking, particularly with a tax rate that's not mine to have.
Thank you so very much. I needed to ask that question. Don't take it personal. I just wanted to know how you work, how you perform. Another one. How many situations have you encountered through your experience from 1982 where you have helped a district, and that you can give it to us in black and white, that that in the situation and circumstances that we find ourselves in financially, because we're not strong like what we used to be. We got ourselves into debt the past 2 years, unfortunately. Our goal is to make sure that whoever comes to us will be able to work with our administration, and that you'll be able to focus on the finances, because we're no longer going to be doing bonds. And I know that the bonds brings in a little bit more money. So finances, you're going to be strictly working on our numbers and our figures and making sure, versus preparing to go out and sell bonds. There's a big difference.
And that's, I think, that's a very good point, because I think that's what distinguishes First Southwest from a lot of other firms. A lot of other firms are simply deal executioners. They want to execute a bond deal because that's how they get compensated. We've actually had clients that have retained us on an annual retainer basis because they have other things they want us to do other than issue bonds every 6 months or every year or every 18 months. One of the things that I would be very inclined to do once we've had an opportunity to sit down with the board and the staff is to encourage the board to adopt financial and debt management policies. In the adoption of financial and debt management policies, and you may already have them, so we would review them if you already have them, but we think that debt management and financial policies are what keep you out of trouble in the long run. Because the board, in adopting these policies, makes very clear, not only to financial advisors and underwriters, but with your staff, you make it very clear what the plan is. And any deviation from that plan can only occur if it's allowed to happen by the school board.
By voting on it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
In a public meeting.
But my question is, how firm would you be to the administration and to the board saying, don't go, you cannot do it? Because obviously it's your job to advise us. I do not recommend this. I mean, do you firmly believe you're capable of doing that? Or you're going to just say, just do it this way? I mean,
No, I think if you'll find in the 28 years that I've been doing this, including the 6 years that I was on the school board at Edgewood, that wasn't how I operated, and it's not how I operate today. That's why when we did the tax rate analysis that we pointed out to you folks earlier in the presentation, we saw a hole there between the 7 cents that's currently being levied and the 11 cents that should be levied to support that debt. At some point, and that's why we had to assume that, because we haven't had an opportunity to sit down with the staff as yet, we were assuming that the board was using what's called an excess collections approach to meeting the requirements to be able to raise the state aid that you're getting. Because I'll tell you that once, and you're getting pretty low on that as well, once you go below that number, you're going to jeopardize the state aid that you're currently getting, which is almost $12 million. No, I think
Okay.
you'll find that that if we get engaged, both Chris and I, we've had a lot of water go under both these bridges, and we're going to be very frank and very sincere with the board. I can do it because I've been there and understand that kind of advice. But financial advisors that are retained only to do bond deals are not going to give you a lot of good advice.
okay. You have a question?
Yes, I noticed that in your presentation, you say that GIC is one of the best things that could help our district. On page 14, I can assist short and believe and can hold.
We've actually action for San Antonio City. They did their almost $62 million qualified school construction bond program last September. We did back we reduced their payments almost.
My name is Mike. Senior from Cabrera Capital Markets. We're here as two firms. About your debt structure, and then
Very much. My name is Steve Perry. I'm a senior vice president with Wells Nelson and Associates. I am the director of education finance firm in the state of Texas. We represent a number of school districts across the state. We also represent private universities, community colleges, and other educational institutions. I'm going to take a moment, walk through the presentation. As Michael alluded to, we believe that the team that we've assembled will give you a different perspective than possibly some of the other firms that you're going to hear from tonight. On the first page of the presentation, you'll see the 4 business cards, or the contact information for four of us. Ricardo Villasenor, Becky Villasenor from Cabrera Capital Markets, and myself and Michael from Wells Nelson and Associates. I believe all the other presenters are presenting by themselves, so within our presentation, we believe that we're bringing a different set of experiences, more different backgrounds to the district that we think will be of benefit as we provide service to the district. Just a quick background on myself and on the firm. Wells Nelson and Associates has been in existence for over 10 years. I've been providing financial advisory services to school districts for 14 years. I've worked with very large school districts in the state of Texas. I've worked with smaller school districts in the state of Texas. I believe that I've seen practically every type of financing that can be done by a school district in this state, including floating rate debt, synthetic fixed rate debt, QSCBs, lease purchase revenue bonds, maintenance tax notes, general obligation bonds. Have seen all of those and have the experience that it takes to structure those and implement those appropriately for the school district. And so I allude to that and give you an idea here of the different backgrounds of the folks within this group. We've been financial advisors, investment bankers, underwriters to school districts in the state of Texas for quite some time. There's not going to be issues at Brownsville ISD that we haven't seen and that we aren't prepared to deal with. Amongst other services that we provided are those of being an investment consultant to school districts. And so as a financial advisor, there's some work that we can do with you, not making specific recommendation on investments, but we can work with the district and will work with the district in terms of policies and looking at different alternatives for investments. Mr. De Leon has been a staffer for the legislature, so he will be able to provide services that I would venture to say that the other firms presenting to you would not have the experience to provide. My first career was as a municipal bond credit rating analyst. I worked for Standard & Poor's when they opened their office in 1997. I worked with them for a couple of years before I got into the financial advisory business. So I feel like I've got a handle on the issues that the rating agencies are looking for in terms of ratings for Texas school districts. The team that we're presenting tonight will share responsibilities for Brownsville ISD on a 50-50 basis. The major things that we do for school districts, such as preparing a plan of finance, helping out with bond election strategy, and preparing credit rating strategy, all of those things will be shared by the folks in this or one firm take the lead versus the other. We would come to consensus as we make recommendations to the district. Like I say, it will be a fair 50-50 split. Some administrative tasks will lend themselves well to one firm. They're taking those, having a cohesive approach to this. And over my career, I have worked with Cabrera Capital Markets in the past. Very comfortable that that the combination of our experiences are the best fit for the district. And with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Mr. Villasenor.
Good evening, board members, staff. Ricardo Villasenor, Senior Vice President of Cabrera Capital Markets. I just want to move quickly through. During this process, we did go through the district's debt structure, both on the INS and the M&O side. We certainly have some questions going forward, as I'm sure you do. I would certainly like to get some answers to help out the district better moving forward. There certainly is potentially some money being left on the table by an EDA program where the district has to set certain tax rates in order to achieve certain additional revenues coming from the state. Slide 5 just shows what your INS debt structure looks like over the next through FY 2029. On slide 6, of course, we went through your M&O debt service as well, which is primarily your lease purchase qualified school construction bonds, and then whether the adjoining tax rate, depending on whether you use the federal subsidy coming in from the QSCB, either on the debt service for these particular bonds or deposited in the general fund. It's quite a significant difference between the two, depending on where those funds are deposited and how they're used. And finally, most importantly, we wanted to bring an idea to you that might help save the district money. In analyzing the INS fund debt service for the district, we found a refunding opportunity on your Series 2001 and 2006 bonds. It is an advanced refunding. Using current market rates, the district could have gross savings of close to $2.4 million, net PV savings of about $2.1 million, which is around 4% of the bonds outstanding. We did structure these two issues in two separate ways. One of level savings, which would generate about $200,000 in savings for the district. Through FY 24, or we did a different scenario to help the district in the upcoming fiscal years due to leveled off assessed values, maybe leveled off state aid coming in. And so what we did is we took the savings in the first 3 years of the fiscal year, which when you strip out the state's portion of debt service is about half a penny on the tax rate on the INS side. That's the extent of our presentation. I think, Mr. DeLeon, if you want to wrap up.
In closing, I'd just like to mention that I know most of the firms here who have applied are very qualified. And I think that one of the things that we want to set ourselves apart from other financial advisory firms is that we want to be able to think outside the box. As an example, the district is thinking outside the box by rolling out its STAMP program. It's an attempt to keep the brightest students here in Brownsville, and I think one of the things that we want to do is kind of showcase what we can do, not necessarily just thinking about a maintenance tax note or a bond election, but we know that there are things that directly and indirectly affect the school district, and we as a financial advisory team can help benefit the district. And with that said, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Longoria has 2 questions, and I have 3, and she's got 1.
Yes, good afternoon. As financial advisors to the district, what would be your duty in looking out for the best interests of our district while knowing that the state is recommending budget cuts anywhere from 15 to 30% for the next 2 years?
As I mentioned, we work with a number of school districts across the state, and each legislative session produces its own set of challenges. So as the legislature is meeting, as various recommendations are coming up in terms of reductions of funding, we work with our clients to look at their debt portfolio, general obligation bonds, lease purchase revenue bonds, maintenance tax notes, and determine if we've got the best possible mix. So we help look across the district. We're not going to stop, though, at looking at your debt. We'll also look at investments and help determine if there are other sources of revenue that we could help potentially bring to the table. And as Mr. Villasenor said, we will also proactively help you to manage your debt so that in the event you need to ask taxpayers for an increase in your M&O tax rate, that we can try and do things to offset those potentially. Your debt service side of things, to the extent you're considering things like tax swaps, we're prepared to help with the analysis for that. Obviously, our job is to provide you with options and to show you the analysis and then let you make the decisions. We can give you recommendations, but we don't substitute judgment for you. So we want to provide you with the latest and greatest, most up-to-date potential financing options but then let you take it from there and do your duty as elected officials and set policy for the district.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, knowing that a district is facing a low fund balance and not in good financial status and facing more state budget cuts, would you propose the district to vote for a sale of bonds in the amount of $45 million, and placing the district with a debt payment of 3.5 $3.0 million for the next 15 years?
Are you talking about on the M&O side or the debt service side? A general obligation bond or a lease purchase?
Either one.
Either. There are a lot of implications to raising money whenever you have tough credit things happening in the district. Obviously, we want to take a look and see what happens to your credit rating. We have the luxury in the state of Texas of our bonds being backed by the Permanent School Fund on the GO side, so that can help to allay some of the concerns about how will investors view your debt. But we have to make the decision, do we need those capital items so badly that we're willing to take on an increased debt load? So sometimes, if you're bursting at the seams in various areas and your students are suffering academically because of the quality of their facilities, then sometimes we may go along with or help you develop a plan in the midst of tough financial times that would still give you access to capital. Brownsville ISD is a large school district. It has a good name in the market. So I think we would want to work with rating agencies, with investors, and tell them what our plans are. And obviously, if there's not a plan in place to help restore fund balance over time, to do things that help you to regain that, then it becomes a tougher sell. But I work not only on school districts, but on some very difficult financings and have developed relationships with investors. And so we would bring that to the table and help to have a rapport with those folks as we proceed.
Okay, thank you.
And my question to you is, as a firm, you and your firm or your colleagues, are you, what would you consider yourselves, conservative or risk takers, and just telling us, go out and sell the bonds and let me just do what I got to do?
Certainly, from our standpoint, I think we always want to be conservative. We don't ever want to put the district in a position to where certainly debt service or certain subsidies don't come in that put the district's general fund, the district's INS fund in harm's way. Because once you sell an issue that does that, unfortunately, you're going to have to be drawing down on those particular funds year in and year out. Well, at some point, it's going to get to zero. And so ultimately, the burden is going to fall back on the taxpayers. But from that standpoint, we're conservative, but we certainly want to be innovative. We certainly want to be out there and give the district, access to capital markets on an annual basis. If there's a large CIP program that needs to move forward, and there may have to be some other sorts of debt instruments that we at least entertain. But we certainly always want to be conservative on our analysis on what assessed values we're using, and what kind of subsidies, whether IFA or EDA from the state, we're going to be using. We certainly don't ever want to put the district in harm's way from having to draw down annually, either from its general fund on the M&O side for the lease purchase bonds, or on the INS, any INS fund balance that the district may have.
Okay. I think what the administration has discussed with us, and what some of us have discussed also, is we're looking for financial advice. Bonds, selling of bonds right now, our district, I don't think, unless there's a new board coming and then they decide they want to build in the next 2 years, 3. But I think what we're trying to do is not focus on the selling of the bonds or going out and get another bond approved. I mean, am I correct, Dr. Montoya? We want to be able to have a team, a group that will work closely with their administration and guide them through the financial distress, because we are not the wealthy district that we were once 2, 3, 4 years ago. We've gotten ourselves into debt. And the last thing we would want to do is go and be a burden to our community, to our taxpayers, because I think they've taken a lot of hits. So explain to us how you would be able to help us financially, not on the bond side, but to work as a team strong and diligently with our team, with our administration.
Sure. I've worked with a number of school districts who have faced financial challenges, some that have gotten themselves in positions where they had negative fund balances, and there was no acceptance of their financings in the market. And that's, you're right, every financial advisory firm can help you sell bonds. But our goal is to work as consultants in between having financings so that we can bring you ideas, various cost-saving ideas. Mr. De Leon has worked in a number of different capacities with different organizations, and so we won't just be thinking about your bonds. I'll let him give you a minute or two of what his experiences are. But whenever I first start working with a district, I want to sit down with staff and talk about where are we headed, where are we now, where do we want to be, and then you may like this idea or not. It's certainly one that you can take and consider or just not use. But I also like having a finance committee, someone that the board puts together, or it can even be a subset of the board, so that as we have various issues coming up, we can present those ideas to that committee for their approval, for their thoughts. I know you've got folks in this community that could be of help in terms of bringing various ideas to the school board and administration. So we find that to be a helpful interface sometimes. Obviously, we're not going to tell you that you have to do that, but that could be a good planning tool and bring more resources to bear for the district. I'll let Mr. De Leon talk about other ideas.
It's funny that you should say that. Today on your agenda, you have advertising for school busing and advertising on, I think, your athletic facilities. I have a number of ideas. I've worked in the Texas Senate for 3 years, and I worked in the Texas House. And our goal was to find ideas for new pieces of legislation. In the same aspect, as financial advisors, we want to bring to you a different set of ideas. Did you also think about maybe putting advertising on your website? Maybe trademarking your name. You know, when you go to football games, everybody's wearing the school colors. Where does that money go to? The money that is generated, does that are you generating a royalty from those sales? If not, maybe that's an idea that you might want to think about. There's a school district in Central Texas that tried to do that too, or is doing that too. It's a Hutto Independent School District. I talked to the superintendent, and a year ago I told him you should think about advertising on buses, and then you should think about trademarking the logo. My kids went to Hutto Independent School District, and I said I wanted a golf shirt, and I said I'm not going to pay for it now because the money won't go to the school district. And he said, why? Because it's not trademarked. You won't earn any money from that. We want to be able to participate, but I want to make sure that the money goes back to the school district because anybody can make money off the school district. These are just some of the ideas that we can bring to the table. I have a list maybe of 25 to 30 ideas that are kind of outside the box, but then again, though, there are other districts that are doing this. So I'm hoping that answers your question.
Would you, I guess this is, would you be able to, because our rating is not either what it was 2-3 years ago, so we're more of an at-risk district. Financially, we are. And we're trying to do whatever it takes to make sure that we bring the team that's going to be able to financially pull us through. And that means that we're going to make money. I mean, I know that it's hard because market changes, fluctuates, and, you know, you can't predict, but that we are going to be able to make some money from this team that comes up. Yeah, time's up. Well, sorry.
I had a question, but
Sorry.
We don't have that question?
She didn't get to ask the last time. Well, thank you so very much for presenting and coming down here. And go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Dr. Montoya. In all fairness, I think we have to ask all the same questions. So
Go ahead and do that.
I think there's only one more question
left.
pending.
We'll go with Ms. Peñas.
Right.
Okay, on page 7, you have your proposed refunding analysis. Do you believe that this can help?
No, wait, we're not ready yet.
Hold on.
Oh, he ran over there. He said bye. He said he heard you say it's over and he ran to get him. No, not yet, sir. Mr. Corpus, sorry. Okay, may I start again? Thank you, Dr. Atkinson. Okay, on page 7 of your presentation, your proposed refunding analysis, do you think this can assist the district in offsetting the shortfall from the state aid? With this refunding analysis, do you think we can, the money you can bring in, we could work at trying to make more money or get more money, because we're going to get a lot less money next year from the state, so the word is.
Right.
So on that scenario,
This particular scenario is on the INS side. From what I've seen, you're not losing a ton of money on the INS side. It would be on the M&O side.
do you have anything similar that would help us on the M&O side?
The M&O side, I don't personally. You sold a lot of qualified school construction bonds, which were, available
Right.
2009 through 2010. Excuse me.
Do you have any ideas that could help us offset that?
Not
I mean,
right
you're the
now.
financial-
I don't exactly right now. It's a very locked-in program. You're receiving quite a bit of money from the federal government. So any refinancing of that particular program, IRS rules haven't been set yet on how that subsidy would then either be lost or carried forward.
Carried over.
But you would be looking at that? Could you
Absolutely.
look to see if they're like, we need to get every penny we can get from anywhere. And believe it or not, yeah, those pennies count, because I made an observation. I've gone to restaurants and I pay, and they owe me back a penny. 26 cents. They'll give me back the quarter, and they never give me back the penny. And I always walk away. If you keep doing that to a lot of your customers, those pennies do add up.
It'll certainly be something we need to monitor.
Okay.
But until the IRS releases their regulations on, we certainly
Okay.
don't want to refinance this debt and give up the entire federal subsidy
No.
that's coming in.
Just something that would be to our benefit. If it's to our benefit, we can look at it. If it's not, okay.
Dr. Montoya.
Thank you.
But as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we would also look at is what sort
Our
of
time is
benefit would you...
our time is up. Because
We're done.
it was one question and we
It was
got
just
on the
one
answer.
question
And
and the answer, and that's it.
We'd look at
Thank
the tax swap, too.
you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
We should have been very conservative.
The next firm up for presentation is M.R. Beal and Company.
Thank you, Ms. Peña. Yeah, we overbilled. Pero they have to form. They have to form. Five. Don't know. Which is this one? MR Bill. MR Bill Company.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir, with your presentation.
For the
10 minutes for presentation, 10 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Carlos Sharpless with MR Beal. This is my partner, Richard Acosta, also with MR Beal. We've got a presentation for you. We'll try to go through it quickly since we only have 10 minutes. But if you turn to page 2, there you'll have some bios and backgrounds. Basically, my experience is fairly broad-based. I've worked with a number of large issuers totaling over $25 million in bonds, and you will note that there are a number of large urban school districts that I've worked with. Richard Acosta has been my partner for about 10 years. He's actually a specialist in school finance and in working with the TEA, and has worked for a number of large and small school districts. If you turn to page 3, just a very quick introduction to MR Beal. We are not one of the large financial advisory firms in the state of Texas. In fact, we are a minority-owned, the oldest continuously owned minority-owned investment banking firm and headquartered in New York with offices in San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. And if you turn to page 4, you will see that we have a vast amount of experience in the state of Texas with a number of recognized issuers and many school districts as well. Page 5, you will note some of the representative school district clients that we've worked with. And there's a number of local districts here that are not mentioned, like Rio Grande City, Lyford, and Point Isabel, that Richard has had direct experience with. But if you turn to page 6, this is one page of a list of school districts that Richard and I have worked with directly. And together with Britt Stock in our Dallas office, we have put together about $4.7 billion of experience with school districts. The highlighted issues there are the ones where we have served as financial advisor, and those are some of the ones that we're going to discuss with you. If you turn to page 7, we recently worked with San Antonio ISD as their financial advisor. We came up with a plan which showed that they had the capacity to do about $900 million in bonds when they were being told by their previous financial advisor that they could only do $600. We guided them through a referendum, and we also assisted the district in getting an exception to the PSF guarantee program that allowed them to issue bonds in 2010. This was important because the federal program expired and they needed to issue before the end of the year. By obtaining that waiver, we were able to save San Antonio ISD about $29 million on that issue alone. Some of the pricing comparisons on that transaction are on page 8. But if you turn to page 9, what we did for San Antonio ISD is actually build a long-range capital funding plan. And the second phase of the plan after the Build America bonds was $100 million refunding. What's important about that refunding is two things. One is that it saved the district another $10 million over the life of the bonds, but we also structured the savings to absorb the lack of state funding that was created by issuing the Build America bonds. And it was an innovative transaction and resulted in a significant amount of savings for the district between the two transactions. We've also worked with a number of property poor districts. I'll turn it over to Richard to talk about Harlandale ISD.
Hi, good evening. Again, my name is Richard Acosta. Harlandale ISD was in very similar circumstances, much like y'all. They had budget constraints. They were at a $1.04 limit. When they came to us and asked us to be considered their financial advisor, they only had $4 million in their fund balance, and they were actually in negotiations to be absorbed with another school district. What we did is we scrubbed the books. We knew they could issue out bonds. They knew we could do IFA, EDA bonds, things of that nature, but they really needed help on the M&O side. We scrubbed the books. We found out that they had issued out some QZAB bonds, very much that are very similar to your QSCB bonds on the M&O side. We advised them that it had never been done before, but that we had read the documents and we thought that we could refund those bonds from the M&O side and put them on the INS side. If they went from the M&O to the INS, they did not receive any funding on the M&O side, but they were a property poor school district. By moving it over, they could get 73% state funding, and they were able to do that and transform the district, and we saved them over $22 million. Their fund balance is now $24 million, and they were just recognized by HEB as the HEB Excellence Awards. If I can get you to go to slide 11, that is another property poor district, South San ISD. It's a client that we've represented for over 10 years now. There in 2004, we passed a bond election, $40.5 million. We were going to qualify that for IFA. Unfortunately, the IFA had cut off. There was not enough money available. We knew that the board had used their political capital to go in front of the borders and get that approved. So we were able to craft a solution to qualify it under the EDA program that had never been done before. We used basically some of the premium that was generated off the bonds, and we were able to supplement the lack of state funding until it came in, and the projects were actually able to start their project, and so there was a very innovative financing that was the first in the state. If I can get you to go to slide 12. This is another one with this client here, but really what it gets to is that here in this example, we basically used, we did a refunding. We used open market securities as opposed to slug, state and local government securities to refund these bonds. We ended up saving 1% more or another $300,000, which was significant to the district. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Carlos, who's going to talk to you about some of the challenges facing the district, as well as some of the ideas that we have.
Yeah, if you turn to slide 14, clearly I think one of the recent actions was Fitch reviewed Brownsville ISD and reduced its rating outlook to negative from stable, primarily as a result of the significant draws on fund balance that have occurred in the last 3 fiscal years. But what's important to note is, even though schools can issue with a PSF guarantee and be AAA, there's a renewed emphasis on credit and underlying ratings because of the financial crisis. But still, what's important on this slide, the takeaway, is that your debt service expenditures are very low compared to your overall budget. Moving to 15, I think one of the things that most boards don't understand is that there are a lot of the components of a credit rating that are outside your control, and there's a very strong emphasis on the long-term economic aspects of your service area, and that is like the strongest correlation to an issuer's rating. And what you will note on this slide is that despite the recession, your tax base has actually grown. This is very unlike many school districts in Texas. So if you turn to page 16, looking at outstanding debt on a per capita basis, your property taxes are a small source of revenues, but on a per capita basis, you still have low and moderate debt ratios. Slide 17 shows your overall debt summary, which we've modeled, and I'm going to turn it over to Richard to talk about some ideas on the M&O side.
On the QSCBs, I know you all are acutely aware of the allocation that you had and kind of the IFA, but what we've done, I talked about earlier at Harlandale, is something similar, moving these bonds from the M&O side to the INS side. This would actually free up some money available to the district. However, looking at that and really studying this, we've concluded that you'll save up roughly on the M&O, but it'll cost you more on the INS side. That is an alternative that could be available. We have looked at all the documents and have also structured that transaction on the M&O side, on the INS side. But that would help you in the short term, but ultimately it would cost you more money to do that from the INS, from moving it from the M&O to the INS. On this chart right here on the graph on the right, we are noticing also too that TEA does have your IFA allocations incorrectly. Those are in the red. I think that is, your current financial advisor or anyone should bring that to TEA because those are money that's being left on the table. This next slide right here is the overview of your INS slide. Basically, you're supplementing your INS side with about 4 pennies. You're keeping it too low. You're losing state funding on those 4 pennies, and you're drawing through your INS fund balance. And so I'm going to cover that. And then basically, if you wanted to issue $25 million, just assuming on INS side, it would cost you about 1 penny. But I really want to get you to go to slide 20. This is where I want to spend some time. This is, the district has the ability right now to increase your M&O tax by 2 cents without an election. You can basically generate a little bit more than $4 million to address all the budget shortfalls that you have. And this could be done without voter approval, just by simply setting your tax rate an additional 2 cents higher, and this is under the compression and everything that's available to the district under the current laws. With that being concluded, we're on a very compressed time. Hopefully you'll have some questions about some of this, but I'm going to turn it back to Carlos to conclude our remarks.
So in conclusion, I think from our perspective, we are a compelling choice to work with you. We are a non-traditional firm. We focus on a small set of clients that generally have complex financial situations and help them solve them. So we have a very transformational approach to rendering advisory services. And obviously we are honored to be included and to have an opportunity to speak before you, and we're open for questions.
Ms. Longoria has 2 questions. I have 2, and she's got 1.
Good afternoon. As financial advisors to the district, what would be your duty in looking out for the best interests of the district while knowing that the state is recommending anywhere from 15 to 30% budget cuts for the next 2 years?
I think really right now what you need to really concentrate on is your maintenance and operation tax. Obviously, there's always issues with budgeting, with actual budget versus the realized budget. I mean, the budget versus actuals. So I think that's really an area that you can concentrate on. But what I was addressing earlier was that under the current circumstance, by simply increasing your taxes 2 cents on the M&O that does not require voter approval, you were in a situation back in 2005. Your tax rate was not at the $1.50. So it got compressed to a lower rate. When you go back and look at the formulas, and we ran through all the formulas, and I think that's really what distinguishes us between most financial advisors. They're concentrated on the debt. We also work on the M&O side, and we've analyzed that by doing that, you can generate another $4 million. So over the next 2 bienniums, that's roughly $8 million more that you would not have to address that. So I think we'd focus on the M&O, obviously look for any opportunities on the INS, and then we would also advise you of what TA policies and what we're hearing from the legislators.
Okay, thank you. My next question, knowing that a district has a low fund balance and is facing more drastic cuts from the state and not in good financial status, would you propose the district to vote for the sale of a $45 million bond, placing the district with a debt payment of $3.5 million for the next 15-20 years?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think the challenges that this district has are more on the M&O side and not on the debt service side. I think the issue of selling additional bonds at this point in time doesn't make sense. Are you talking about selling bonds now?
Well,
there are some opportunities to save money on the bond side by doing refundings. They're very small. There's a small one available right now, and there's a couple out there in 2015 and 2016. But in terms of selling additional bonds right now, it doesn't make sense.
If I could just address, I think what I heard, the $40 million, that kind of coincides with the QSCBs. Sure. And we were actually financial advisor to San Antonio ISD. They were one of the big 16, just like y'all. We got a direct allocation from the Treasury to receive that. And I know that the pressure you were under, you did not have voted authorized debt to issue out, so you went ahead and issued on the M&O side. That's something that we were advised against. In San Antonio ISD, they were very similar circumstance. We had an 09 authorization that was going to expire. We negotiated with TEA, and we said that we'll give it back to you to put in your general pool. We would not lose it. And in 2010, we would come back to you until we figured out what we wanted to do and get that allocation back. We were able to do that. We actually had an election, and then once we had the election, we were able to move those bonds and issue them where they really needed to be, on the INS side, not on your maintenance and operation, because those are for teachers and for salaries and things of that nature. So, no, that's kind of where we stand on that.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for you and your firm or your colleagues. Would you consider yourselves conservative or just risk takers if you're going to be doing business with us?
Conservative.
Conservative? Okay.
But we think outside the box. I mean, I think what's important is that we are conservative, but we are very focused on achieving results for our clients that make financial sense.
Yeah. Well, and this question is, tell us how you and your company or your colleagues will be helping our district get out of the current financial debt that we're in, and work with the administration closely enough where it's going to be more of overseeing the financial side. Because for bonds, I'm going to tell you, I don't think we're going to be selling it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if a new board comes, they want to build some more and they want to go out and sell some more bonds and get the district into more debt. I know that some of us here are to the point where bonds is not a thought right now. We got to bring down our debt. Our rating has dropped. I mean, it's not what we used to be. I mean, 2-3 years ago, we were a strong district. We were good. We were solid. Right now, we're on the floating side.
I think we envision ourselves working with the district. When one of the things that I pointed out is your INS tax rate. you are keeping it, you've kept it at that same level for the last 3 or 4 years. We actually had a same situation with San Antonio ISD. They were keeping their tax rate too low. We showed them that they were going into a biennium, that they actually needed to set the tax rate higher to maximize the state aid. So basically right now, to give you an idea, your taxes on the INS side is roughly 7 cents, or that's what it's 7 cents, but it really should be close to 11 cents. So for 4 cents, half of what your current 11, you're paying dollar for dollar on. And that is using all your fund balance. You've gone from $5 million down to $2.5 million. We would show you that it makes sense to go ahead. You've got your tax rate on the INS side is actually one of the lowest in the state. But when you look at it, when you look at the amount of money you receive 70% of state aid there. You're not fully utilizing all your resources. And then on the M&O side, obviously you've gone through the budget and those bonds. That's something we could look at on trying to move them over. But again, going back to that M&O, I would say you're going to be going into not the golden pennies,
Not the golden pennies.
but you're going to go into the copper pennies. And I'm not sure why you haven't raised that tax rate, but when you look at the calculations, when you look on that slide that I showed you, you have the ability to increase it an additional 2 cents without any cost, without any voted approval, which is already by law, and that would generate $4 million for you to address M&O side. And that one of the things about our colleagues is they tend not to focus on that area, and that's something that we acutely are aware of on those formulas.
Well, we also need to make sure that we focus that when we bring in a team to work with our administration is that the focus is going to be strictly on lowering our debt and how we can save and bring more money into the district, because we all know that financial advisors make money on bonds, the selling of the bonds, correct?
Correct.
So, now the last question is Ms. Peña.
Yes, on your page 20, where, from what I'm hearing you say, you propose that this could help our budget shortfall, so this could assist with shortfall in state aid. Right, this could assist with our shortfall in the state aid for
That's
the next
correct.
year.
Yes, ma'am.
And the million-dollar question is, how do we do it without the community wanting to cut our head off? Because I know we can go up, and we've discussed this before in other board meetings, that we're not at the max that we can be. And the only touchy area is the fact that the community, because this is coming from their pockets, how do we do that? And how can you do it gracefully? That's what I'm trying to ask. Because you do believe this will assist us in the shortfall from state aid. Am I correct?
I think so. I think I would encourage some of the neighborhood participants to come and try to attend your meeting, get high turnout, and try to educate them. Here's our budget. Here's how much cuts we're going to have to make. If we increase it,
Excellent.
here's how much money we can generate and keep the same quality of education for our children, keep our community employed, really kind of continue that progress of rating agencies want to see you utilizing all your resources that you have. The more enrollment that you have, the more stable you are, a better place it is. But ultimately trying to educate them and then also show them by going 2 cents, we have the ability to not even ask you to go to 2 cents, but here's how much it's going to cost the average taxpayer. Is it worth it for your children? And you really just educate them, let them know that.
So you
put all your
ask-
tables on the all your cards on the table, and then make your decision based upon that.
So, yeah, I don't want to tell them what they already know, because, I don't want to shove it down their throat, because they know that we don't have to ask them. But my point is, I like your idea of getting them involved in the process and making them feel involved and part of the process and giving them the reason for it and what the benefits are and explaining it to them and bringing it down to their level so they can actually stop and think what they're helping us with. Then if they feel more involved, it's an easier pill to swallow.
And you can also show them kind of that at that point you're also receiving more state aid than what you're actually levying. And so
Good idea.
I think just to give you an idea, with that 2 cent raise, you would generate $1 million locally and $3 million from the state. So you're basically getting 25% leverage or 75% leverage on that. And again, showing the community, would you do if it costs you $1 and they give us $3 instead?
Mr.
Thank you
What was
so
your name
much.
again?
Mr. Acosta.
Mr. who?
Acosta.
Acosta, I'm sorry. I didn't pick up. Your time's up. Thank you so very much for
Thank
being
you. Very
here.
well presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, good presentation. Thank you so very much. Thanks for traveling down here to do your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final presentation for tonight is a firm of Estrada and Hinojosa.
Yes, the superintendent. Oh, one more because she's not here. She left. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. You have 10 minutes to present and 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present tonight. We represent Estrada Hinojosa. My name is Dave Gordon. My partner here is Miguel de los Santos. Unfortunately, Noe Hinojosa was here earlier and had to complete a bond sale at Laguna Madre Water District and had to leave, and he will be back. He may come back when we're finishing up. If you turn to the first page of the book on page 2 there, again, just to present the team, we have a very experienced team that we've put forth to serve the district. Many of these team members have been serving the district for the last 10 years as financial advisor. If you turn to page 4, just a brief history of the company. The company has been around since 1992. Both the founding partners, Bob Estrada and Noe Hinojosa, are from the Brownsville, Matamoros area, and Noe himself actually went to Brownsville ISD for a period of time. We've supported the Brownsville ISD significantly over the last 10 years, including supporting the stock market game. The firm is 100% employee-owned and is fully certified by FINRA, MSRB, and the SEC. If you look on page 5, just a brief history of the firm. As I mentioned, we were founded in 1992, and when BISD hired Estrada Hinojosa as financial advisor 10 years ago, or actually in 2000, the firm was a significantly different firm then, both in terms of the number of employees that we have, in terms of the breadth and reach of the firm geographically, in terms of the services that we can offer. The firm has grown significantly over that period of time, as you can kind of see from the graph in the bottom right, as well as the geographic map on the bottom left. And that's to a large part due to the good clients we've had, like Brownsville ISD and many other clients we have in the Rio Grande Valley and the Brownsville area. If we look on the following page, some brief summary of our firm in terms of our financial advisory and underwriting rankings. As I mentioned, I'm very proud to say I've been with the firm for 8 years. I'm very proud to say that during that period of time, the firm has indeed grown significantly. And over the last number of years, we've consistently ranked as the number 2 or 3 financial advisor in the state of Texas. Again, you saw from the previous page that the firm has expanded significantly beyond our Texas borders. We now have 9 offices. 4 of those offices are in Texas, and we like to call Texas, of course, our home base and have a significant presence here. You can see on the right-hand side our underwriting rankings. We're both a financial advisory firm as well as a investment banker and an underwriter. So we're accessing the market in one capacity or the other on almost a daily basis. I wanted to go ahead and turn it over to Miguel now to just talk about our Valley experience as well as some of our school district experience.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Miguel de los Santos. I've been with Estrada Hinojosa now for 16 years. I was superintendent of schools down here for 16 years in San Benito, Edinburgh, La Jolla, and a deputy superintendent of Houston Public Schools. I retired in 1995 and joined the University of Texas Pan American as a professor and Estrada Hinojosa and Company as a banker representing them in the Rio Grande Valley. During the time period that I have been with Reynosa and Company, as far as a four-county area in South Texas, if you would look at the list that's there, it's only partial. We actually have represented and represent in Cameron County 7 of the 9 school districts, in Hidalgo County all 16 school districts, in Stark County 2 of the 3, and the third one has not issued any debt, and in Willacy County 3 of the 4. And as FA, we have been financial advisor to 16 of the 32 school districts in the 4-county area. We represent the smallest school district, which is San Perlita ISD, in the Port Mansfield area, all the way to the largest school district, which is Brownsville. We have currently some of the districts that are not here that we think are important are San Perlita, Raymondville, for example, and La Sara ISD, which is also a small school district, but very, very important to our firm also. We do a lot of work. My role is principally to work with school districts. I have been before this board and worked with this administration 3 or 4 times. I have not been the representative of record, but I have had the opportunity to work with staff 5, 6 years ago, and would be available. I live in Edinburgh and am available within a couple of hours' notice to be of service to the school district. Thank you very much for your attention.
So Miguel summarized a number of pages, and I'm going to flip to now behind page 12. Talk a little bit about what we've done for Brownsville ISD. As I mentioned, as you probably know, we've been financial advisors since 2000. We're very happy to have had the opportunity to serve the district, and love the opportunity to do that again going forward. During that particular period, we have helped the district with 10 transactions totaling about $286 million. As part of that, we identified 3 refundings that saved the district over $4 million, and also have presented a number of refundings kind of during this RFP period, and which were not acted upon. You can see then again the listing of those transactions on that page. A couple of transactions that are of particular note.
Let me, before I lose the train of thought on this report, these are all bonds? You've worked with bonds?
Yes, ma'am.
So you've done a lot of money with bonds. That's how you guys, do you guys, like, get paid on the bonds? I'm sorry. I got caught off guard, so many bonds I hadn't seen. There was a lot of selling of bonds here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
On page 14 is a list of a couple of transactions that are of particular note. As you know, we represented you in 2009 when we sold those 2009 obligations, as well as in 2010 when we sold 4 series of obligations. Both of these transactions had IFA, or Instructional Facilities Allotment Program support, and the 2010 obligations also had support from the federal government. Those transactions were used to provide funds on a very, very cost-effective basis for projects that the district had identified, that we had worked through, vetted with the district, and worked through the various plans of finances I'll talk about in just a second. You can see that the cost of those funds was about 3.37% for the 2009 obligations and 0.39%. That's a correct amount there, 0.39% for the 2010 A through E obligations. So on page 16 and 17, I just want to briefly summarize what does a financial advisor do? A financial advisor has 2 broad roles. The first is that we help you finance projects that you identify. So we will help you issue bonds. That's the largest way that we help you actually finance a project. We don't identify projects. We don't, in many cases, we've not been to your school districts. We've not been to various places. We don't identify the projects. We work with your staff to finance the projects that you've identified. And then on an ongoing basis, we help you manage your debt portfolio. We have done this since 1992 for hundreds of school districts, as well as hundreds of other entities. We will modify our program as we go forward to basically meet your specific needs, but these are the basic steps we'll go through. Listed on the bottom of this page are kind of the evaluation and planning steps that we talk about. First, again, is to identify those projects that are important to the district or whatever entity that we represent. The next is to develop alternatives to basically help you understand the ramifications of financing various projects, and then ultimately we select that final plan of finance that is approved by both your staff as well as the governing body. If we look on page 17, once we get to the point of selecting that plan of finance, we execute the transaction and go through the various steps to do that. And then ultimately, we render post-bond transaction support, which quite often is basically meeting with your CFO or meeting with the superintendent on an ongoing basis to basically provide guidance between bond transactions. So to sum up briefly on page 19, first and foremost, regardless of if we're selected again, we've enjoyed the opportunity, and we're very pleased to have had the opportunity to represent Brownsville ISD during this last 10 years or so. Again, and I didn't mean it. I mean it sincerely. That part of the reason this Estrada Hinojosa has been successful is because of the clients we've had in the Rio Grande Valley, and Brownsville ISD certainly is one of those. With the firm, you get an experienced group of bankers. You get a number of people to basically help you meet your specific needs. You'll get a firm that's basically dedicated to do what is necessary in the case of Brownsville ISD as to meeting your needs. And there's a list of other things. I'm not going to go through those in detail. But again, I would sincerely request that you consider our past support and consider us favorably going forward.
Okay, sir, we have two questions, and she's got one question. Go ahead, Ms. Longoria.
Good afternoon. As financial advisors to the district, what would your duty be in looking out for the best interests of the district while knowing that the state is recommending anywhere from 15 to 30% budget cuts for the next 2 years?
Well, there's a number of considerations, obviously, along that line. We have to work through those issues with you, but of course you do have both an M&O tax as well as an INS tax. Because of the way that school finance is structured in Texas, it's often easier actually to finance those projects than it is to operate them. The operations is something that you guys, your staff, the board, has to work with us so we can understand what those ramifications are. From the financing perspective, quite honestly, you guys have a very low INS tax rate and have significant capacity to finance those projects, particularly when you're able to access programs like IFA or EDA or other federal programs that make it so it's very cost effective to finance them. Again, the question in terms of actually operating them is something that's kind of beyond the scope of what we do, but we certainly can help you understand that that exercise and kind of go through models, but your staff probably is much more well versed in terms of your operations than we're going to be.
Okay, my next question. Knowing that a district has a low fund balance and not in good financial status and facing more drastic budget cuts, would you propose to the district to vote for a sale of perhaps $45 million bond and placing the district with a debt payment of $3.5 million